Qualifying races at the Meadows for June 15th. First race for 2-year-old colt pacers. 1 was scratched, 2 Millie Willie. Village Jolt colt, trained by Dana Mock, driver Spencer Carrick. 3 Verlander, trained by Paul Kennedy, with Eric Ledford, a Hawaiian cowboy colt. 4 Come On Buzz Off by Real Desire, trained and driven by Ray Paver. 5 Chicago Hanover, trained by Bruce Regal, driver Mike Wilder, colt by Dragon Again. Number 6 Cyrus Sealster by Dragon Again, trained by Chris Olevic, driver Eddie McKnight. And the 7 Sweet Lou by Yankee Cruiser, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Second qualifying race for 2-year-old colt trotters. Number 1, Lindy's Best Yet by Cantab Hall, trained by Steve Bush, the driver Mike Wilder. 2 Stardust Memories by Cantab Hall, trained and driven by J.C. Miller Jr. 3 Tangram by Chip Chip Hooray, trained and driven by Greg Wright. 4 Quantum Andover by Andover Hall, trained and driven by Steve Schoeffel. 5 Broadway Laddie by Broadway Hall, trained and driven by Marty Wollum. 6 Lucky Yim by Tagliabue, trained by Janet Irvine, driver Don Irvine Jr. 7 Oscars Hall by Cantab Hall, trained by Bruce Regal, the driver Ernie Danks. Third qualifying race, this one for 2-year-old colt pacers. Number 1, Sin City Baby by All-American Native, trained and driven by Steve Schoeffel. 2, Clonopin trained by Ron Burke, driver Dave Pallone, this one by No Pan Intended. 3, Picture Perfect by Dragon again, trained by Randy Bendis, the driver Tony Hall. 4, One for Pence by All-American Native, trained by James Chris Jr., driver Dan Charlino. 5, Ticklish Terror by Western Terror, trained by Bob Krenitsky Jr., driver Brian Zent. Number 6, Cheshire Cat by Yankee Cruiser, trained by Jason Shaw, the driver Chris Shaw. 7, Bay Bliss by Blissful Hall, trained by John Kreiser, the driver Corey Kreiser. Fourth qualifying race for June 15th, this one for 2-year-old colt trotters. Number 1, Hawaiian Caviar by SJ's Caviar, trained and driven by Bill Zent. Number 2, Collective Effort by Glide Master, trained by Boots Dunn, the driver Brian Zent. Number 3, Broadway Speed by Broadway Hall, trained by Marty Wollum driving. Number 4, Hall Harbor by Cantab Hall, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Number 5, Sideways by SJ's Caviar, trained and driven by Terry Altmeyer. Number 6, Sweet Gypsy Lindy by Tom Ridge, trained by Bill Dommett, the driver Dick Stillings. Number 7, Anastasia Joe by Anastasia Barron, trained by Jim Doherty, the driver Bill Doherty Jr. Number 8, Can Do by Cantab Hall, trained and driven by Ray Paver. Fifth qualifying race for 2-year-old colt pacers. Number 1 was Scratch. Number 2, Catch the Terror by Western Terror, trained by Randy Bendis, the driver Tony Hall. Number 3, Late Night Terror by Western Terror, trained by Dan Altmeyer, the driver Mike Wilder. Number 4, Police Car by Yankee Cruiser, trained and driven by Steve Schoeffel. Number 5, Gypsy Colors by Real Artist, trained by Rich Gillock, the driver Dick Stillings. Number 6, Pans d'Ar au revoir by No Pan Intended, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. And number 7, This One and One More by Blissful Hall, trained and driven by Marty Wollum. Sixth qualifying race, this one for 2-year-old colt trotters. Number 1, Redder Than Red by SJ's Caviar, trained by Boots Dunn, the driver Brian Zent. Number 2, Keystone Wyatt by Cantab Hall, trained and driven by Bill Zent. Number 3, Who Took Sam by Victory Sam, trained and driven by Ray Paver. Number 4, MM's Yankee by Malabar Millennium, trained by Bill Doherty Jr., the driver Dick Stillings. 5 was Scratched. Number 6, Armed Dangerously by Cash Hall, trained and driven by Tom Houghton. Number 7, Greenpeace by Cantab Hall, trained and driven by Marty Wollum. Number 8, Rock and Jesse by Jailhouse Jesse, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Seventh qualifying race, this one for 2-year-old colt pacers. Number 1, Winback Jake by Quick Pulse Mindale, trained by Randy Bendis, the driver Tony Hall. Number 2, TSM Gabby Warbucks by Cole Muffler, trained by Jan Fred, driver Eric Ledford. Number 3, Struther by Yankee Cruiser, trained by Don Lark Jr., the driver Brian Zent. Number 4, Real Infusion by Real Desire, trained by Rich Gillock, the driver Dick Stillings. Number 5, Chili's Dragon by Dragon Again, trained by Dan Altmeyer, the driver Mike Wilder. Number 6, Hershey Please by I Am a Fool, trained and driven by Steve Schoeffel. Number 7, Babes I Scoot by I Scoot Hanover, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Eighth qualifying race for 2-year-old colt trotters. Number 1, Charles Ray by Broadway Hall, trained by Marty Wallum the driver. Number 2, Trustworthy Kid by SJ's Caviar, trained by Boots Dunn, the driver Brian Zent. Number 3, Upfront Billy by Andover Hall, trained and driven by Bill Zent. Number 4, Caspian Boko by SJ's Caviar, trained and driven by Chris Rickert. Number 5, Boytown by American Winner, trained by Rich Gillock, the driver Dick Stillings. Number 6, Rubba Dub Dub by Tagliabue, trained by Ed Ryder, the driver Dan Charlino. And number 7, King of Chrome by Chip Chip Hooray, trained by Kent Sherman, the driver Eric Ledford. Ninth qualifier for 2-year-old colt pacers. Number 1, Balladeer Hanover by the Ponderosa, trained by Dan Altmeyer, the driver Mike Wilder. Number 2, Seth First by Stone Ridge Regal, trained and driven by Steve Schoeffel. Number 3, Shark Teen by 4 Stars Shark, trained by Rich Gillock, the driver Dick Stillings. Number 4, TR Kilowatt Sam by Kilowatt, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Number 5, Danger High Joltage by Village Jolt, trained by Don Lark Jr., the driver Brian Zent. Number 6, Old Man Charlie by Cam's Fortune, trained by John Kreiser, the driver Corey Kreiser. Number 7, TSM Pearly Cruiser by Yankee Cruiser, trained by Jan Fred, the driver Eric Ledford. Number 8, Remix by Quick Pulse Mindale, trained by Randy Bendis, the driver Tony Hall. Tenth qualifier, this one for 2-year-old filly trotters. Number 1, Lima Blue by Cantab Hall, trained and driven by Marty Wollum. Number 2, Elderberry by Tom Ridge, trained by Dan Walski, the driver Brian Zent. Number 3, Kamikaze by SJ's Caviar, trained and driven by Dean Collins. Numbers 4 and 5 were scratched. Number 6, Voluptuous Rhonda by Broadway Hall, trained by Tom Houghton, the driver Tom Houghton. Number 7, Upfront Bye Bye by Cantab Hall, trained by Bill Zent driving. Number 8, This Kid Can't Wait by Cincinnati Kid, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Qualifying race number 11 for 2-year-old filly pacers. Number 1, Pembroke Destiny by All-American Ingot, trained by Randy Bendis, the driver Mike Wilder. Number 2, Fit to Romp by Art Escape, trained by Ron Burke, the driver Dave Pallone. Number 3, Tell Rosie by Tell All, trained by Justin Lebo, the driver Tony Hall. Number 4, Desire's Daughter by Real Desire, trained by Ashley Brown, the driver Brady Brown. Number 5, My Filipino Baby by Metropolitan, trained by James Chris Jr., the driver Dan Charlino. Number 6, The Ship's Cruisin' In by Yankee Cruiser, trained by Hoy Rickert, the driver Chris Rickert. Qualifier number 12 for 2-year-old filly trotters. Number 1, Miss Chip K by Chip Chip Hooray, trained and driven by Charlie Norris. Number 2, Candian Club by Pegasus Spur, trained by Dean Collins driving. Number 3, Audrey Hall by Tom Ridge, trained by Dan Walski, the driver Brian Zent. Number 4, Eleanor Eden by Thunder Road, trained by Marty Wallum drives. Number 5, South Beach Princess by Muscles Yankee, trained by Greg Wright, the driver Will Yoder. Number 6, Barmaid by Cantab Hall, trained by Dan Altmeyer, the driver Mike Wilder. And number 7, The Raincatcher by SJ's Caviar, trained and driven by Terry Altmeyer.